For those who don't know me, my name is Kim Taylor. I'm SATSA's Communication Manager. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to be handing over soon to Kumaran Padiachi from Spartan SME Finance. Kumaran has been funding SMEs for the past 28 years, so we are in very good hands this afternoon. He has an intimate understanding and expertise in SME financing. He's a CEO of Spartan SME Finance and an alternative financer, non-bank financial institution, which he'll be unpacking for us in a bit. Spartan's structured finance approach covers growth finance, specialized asset finance, and working capital finance. Kumaran, interestingly enough, and I didn't know this, was a co-panelist for 8 years on both the popular Big Small Business Show and the SME Funding Show on Business Day TV. So a bit of a celebrity too. So without any further ado, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Kumaran. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Kim. So happy to be here. Let me just check that we're sharing first.
You are all there?
We're all there. Okay, good. I just came back, I think, like some of you or most of you, a month ago from the tourism in Durban, and it was a few of us from Spartan attended. It was the first time that we as a funder attended that. So it was a baptism of excitement and understanding how your trade works, aside from being road travelers, and the energy and that speed dating is really something impressive. So this session emanates from a recent strategic alliance, strategic partnership that we signed with SATSA and Spartan SME Finance. And so we're doing a series of these sessions over the next few months. And the strategic partnership that we've done with SATSA is specifically around our tourism.
Sorry, Kumaran, you just froze for a second there, but we seem to have got you back.
Oh. Lost me. No? Have they lost me?
We've got you, but you are a little staggered. There's a bit of a delay.
I'm back?
You're back.
All right. I'm back. Okay. Sorry. And yeah, so this partnership, and so I'm going to spend about half the time chatting to you, introducing you to Spartan very briefly, telling you specifically what we have to offer in the sector, the categories, and then hopefully the other half of the time we talk about questions and answers, and I can answer maybe most or all of your questions. There's only about 7 slides. The first 2 is just about Spartan to set context, and then our zoning to tourism sector. Right. We've been, as a business, a non-bank financial institution. That's what you'd call us. We've been established since 1981. And so over those many years, we've funded, understandably, a lot of SMEs when we are not having our phones on in meetings. And we are a regulated funder, as we have to be, with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority and NCR, even though most of our loans are substantially larger and above that. And importantly, a little bit about our funding options and approach. The first thing I would let you into is about a diversity in funding options. Most non-bank lenders tend to have 1 or 2 funding products because it's very complicated to in the 3 broad categories now. The first is you got to call Yusuf to tell them what's happening. Yeah. So the first category is growth finance, and that is in the tourism sector, but it doesn't have to be. It's anyone acquiring a business, or acquiring a property, or expanding that property, or expanding that business. And so to achieve that growth strategy or that plan, then it requires a certain type of funding, typically 5 years. Now, Sometimes in property funding, the 5 years is convenient. Sometimes it's not convenient because from a cash flow perspective, it needs to ideally be longer. And so we are able to, based on the specific context, to try and structure something around that so that the cash flow is then a bit more manageable for the business. But that's on a case-by-case example. The second category of funding we do is specialized asset finance. This could be for vehicles. Either there's a transfer fleet operator, or it's for a larger tourism business themselves, or they're putting in energy infrastructure or generalized infrastructure, highly specialized type of equipment as well. We could look at and things that a bank would normally fund. If it's a bucky, something not, I mean, the bank can do that. We are not needed for those types of things. The more specialized, the more difficult, the more tricky, that's where we would come in. And those are the terms or periods there. The last category that we offer is working capital finance. That's self-explanatory. But the periods there could be a 1 to 3 month alternative revolving kind of an overdraft, or a 6 to 12 month, monthly installment. And the way we structure these, it could be all three categories at once, because a business has this diversity of needs. And it can also be in phases. As the business growth objective is achieved, then we could unlock the next round of funding. And the business would say, look, I'd like to do this over the next 5 years. Phase one, I want to do this, see how it's going with demand. Then I would have a bit more comfort to take it up to the next level and the next level. And so we could try and give a pathway of confidence to expand through those future evolutions. It's a bit difficult, but that's what we could try to do, or we do. The loan amounts vary from a minimum of 1 million to 75. But just the process of getting to this intimate understanding requires a lot of effort. It's not viable, even at 1 million, it's not viable for us to look at anything below that. And so that's why these amounts. The approach is very important. We take a structured finance approach as opposed to just a transactional or a scorecard approach. This means that we first try and achieve a deep understanding of what the growth context is. And we first start with the jockey, because the entrepreneur is the delta in this. You can get someone that's got great collateral, but wrong integrity, or doesn't have the competence for what they're doing or experience, and then that in itself is the disaster. Or you could get someone that has a little bit less of that ideal collateral or something like that to make a funder happy, but has a right type of experience, right type of engaging, coachability, learning, mindset, EQ, and all of that. And then that is an invisible type of comfort that's very important for someone like us. May not be for other funders, but for us, it's very important. So we start with understanding the jockey or the entrepreneur, and then their business. And then we get to structure around that. Sometimes you may say, listen, what you're dreaming about is, we need to see you learn or evolve to a different state. We're going to do this for phase one, and then watch it and learn about you and figure out a bit more. So there's this bespokeness that comes in. Sometimes we're left with, scratching our head to say, listen, this is a problem. We needed some form of collateral. There's nothing there. Not all the time we look at collateral, and then we structure something. Maybe it's a joint venture basis or something like that, to try and still figure out a way how to help. That doesn't happen in the main. It happens as an exception, but we will take that creative approach if need be, if we believe that there's opportunity there for both sides, rather than simply walk away. And if we do walk away, our style is to give feedback, so hopefully the person can reflect and come back again and engage. All right, I told you the 2 slides. Now I'll get into the categories we fund. On our website, which I'll show you in a moment, we say we don't do startups, and that's in the main true. Why in the main? Because, it's hard to fund like a graduate that has an idea. But where there are exceptions, we have I'm telling you the secret now, there are exceptions where we funded startups. If someone's winning a concession, in effect, they're the startup, right? And but we look, generally there would be more older, experienced entrepreneurs going into something new, have a bit of a contact network, have a bit of experience, mastery, has failed and learnt in the right way sometimes. So that we prize all of that. And so then we're saying, well, that's a different from somebody that just graduated and wanting to jump into something blind without a bit of life experience. So I wanted to just add that qualification in there. So there's three broad categories that we like. And when I talk about these three broad categories, we are not saying anything in tourism outside of this we don't do. We're just saying we love tourism overall, but we have to choose our space. And this is where we kind of get a little bit more excited. There's one business that we're looking at that's a transfer fleet operational business. It doesn't fall into any of these three categories necessarily, but we're still looking at it. So these things in tourism, so first is adventure business. And so, we believe it's a beautiful country. It's been blessed. We got ideal type of landscape. There's lots of things where you can get excitement and injure yourself. And I think SATSA is doing some work to try and put some protocols around that danger. But people, love a bit of that risk as well. So this could be, and it's where there's infrastructure, facilities, equipment. There's this ecosystem of investment that's required. It could be things like helicopters, it could be ballooning, it could be, these special zip lines. Now, it's something like quad biking. Theoretically is adventure. It is adventure, but it doesn't need us because you could fund those next growth in the quad bikes out of cash flow or buy a few on credit cards. But there's more chunkier category of adventure businesses that require a little bit more extra investment and to do the marketing and the infrastructure. That's the type of thing that we are talking about. And so hopefully that nuance helps understand. The second category is either acquiring or building unique lodging or locations. You may, if they lost me again. Okay. So yeah, this gets a bit complicated, where it's not just growth finance or the longer term capital that's required for the asset. It's all the ecosystem of investment that goes around it. Sometimes someone is expanding, they're putting fleets, they're putting other types of facilities, and so we get involved in that. Now, I just want to qualify, like I did with adventure, what we mean by unique locations. The concessions is easy to understand, and of course the legal paragraphs or restrictions in those concession agreements become enabling for funding or a huge barrier. So that's an important, very important red flag that needs to be considered for the tourism entrepreneur and ourselves. But let's get to the unique part, because concessions, like I said, is easy to understand. On the unique, it doesn't have to be in... It could be something in a CBD that has an iconic aspect to it. But a general B&B, I think there are other types of funders that could fund that. But something a little bit more complicated, a little bit more iconic, not by way of location necessarily, but what they're doing in that location. It's a bit harder to explain. I just realized that now. But it doesn't always have to be in the beautiful parts of, overlooking waterfalls is what I'm saying. There could be something else that makes it unique. And why is that important is because then it affects demand and consistency of demand. So that's what we're looking for, because that's an important thing, to take a bit more risk in these types of things. The third category is suppliers to the tourism industry. These are not tourism operators, but people that could be doing glamping tents, energy solutions, all kinds of other things, not just CapEx related, that they're supplying the sector. And then there's either for them taking on a project, they have to tell the tourism entrepreneur, hey, we need 100% upfront, because their funding challenge becomes the tourism operators' funding challenge. And here we could fund them to do the project, or to offer the funding to the tourism operator. So these are broadly the three categories. We'll expand into, I think 2 more slides or 3 more slides on each one. So funding your adventure business, it doesn't have to be helicopters, but it's things that are a bit exotic. We can look at businesses in SADC, provided they're headquartered in South Africa, because I realize, I think it's a Victoria Falls a picture. So we can look at outside, but it has to be a South African business. There's a reason for that, because engaging legal issues and all of that in different countries for us is a limitation. So it's better if we are engaging with the South African businesses operating there. And the hurdles to these typical things are investments can be significant, right? And then it requires some kind of phased structuring to help match how they ramp up. You don't just start up an adventure business and switch on the lights and day one everything is at full peak demand and operating and cash flow. That is often the problem. And understanding these adventure businesses, whether it's operating, and the models, whether it's operating in a concession area or not, it's difficult for funders to assess. A ballooning business in Sossusvlei in Namibia, even though it's owned in South Africa, that was a pioneer, that guy that did that, or a zip line in Addo, whatever it is. These are assessing the demand and the consistency of the demand, and then the cash flow is the real difficult thing. And business plans are helpful and paradoxically at the same time not helpful. And so we got mixed feelings about business plans, which I'll maybe talk about in a moment. So all of this requires some structuring. Then the next part on the acquisition, same story, lack of funding for existing or new local or sites. But the other thing is, sometimes someone could have an existing site but wants to expand, almost like a renovation, or adding more rooms or adding more facilities, even though they already own the site or they've got some other funder that has funded the site. Our funding could come in and complement those additional needs that are, whilst there's someone already funding the existing site. So that's the second part of what I'm talking about. And part of our process doesn't just apply to this site acquisitions. It's a process where the entrepreneur has the ability, and it's an important part of our process, to meet in person with the telecom team. In other words, the decision makers deciding on the loan. And this enables them to put their case forward. It's almost like old-fashioned banking that used to exist decades ago. You could meet with the bankers that are making the decision, as opposed to post-boxing it up the line, and you're not interfacing, able to put your case forward. And so that's very important. And this is the part I'll talk about business plans. Business plans can be a very good thing if done by the entrepreneur. But if outsourced to some consultant that struggled to get input and had to rustle up something for the funders, then that's a problem, because then it's just a baseless document. So we like to interview the entrepreneur and so he or she would know these types of things. And so we'd interrogate things like demand, marketing, costing, margins, project timelines, all those types of things. And so that interview process is very important. It can feel somewhat interrogative, but it's not intended to be. It's intended to allow the person to motivate their case. And of course, if they did the business plan themselves, by all means give it to us. If they haven't, then we don't want to see it. We're interested in more around the thinking and interrogating thinking. The third part of
I think we have lost. There we go.
Am I back? Sorry about this.
You are back.
Okay. So this is now the supplier to the tourism industry. And so imagine if they're a tenting supplier, they give a quote for 8 million Rand. and they give 100 of these quotes to 100 different clients, and nobody really signs, because how many people can write a check for 8 million rand? So our offering allows the supplier to take a funding solution to the end operator. Also, the other thing is sometimes it could be he needs an overdraft, because there's some tourism operators go through seasonality, and that could affect the supplier's receipts of payments. And so we're able to structure something. So this is an ecosystem view is what I'm saying. It's not just the operators, it's also the suppliers to the sector. I'll stop there, and in fact, I want to just go to a website very quickly. Just bear with me. No, one. There we go. Right. Can you see that? This is just our website. I wanted to show and sharing.
There we go.
Right. Okay. So this is just a website, encouraging people to go there and look at what we're doing. Remember the no startup? I gave the little secret qualification only for this call. And then importantly, under niche sectors, there's a whole lot of sectors that we look at, right? Mining supplies, financing movies, property development. And there we go, tourism financing. So it's a bit obscure because it's in that drop down. So I'd encourage you to go there. And then this is a web page specifically for the tourism sector. One moment. Let's look back on.
Coming up. There we go.
Yeah, I'm trying to go to the last slide. That's instinct. I'm frozen. Okay, we can open up to questions. I'll go to the last slide in a moment, which is just our contact details. That's all it is.
Sure, no worries. We haven't had really any questions aside from the fact we had a question from Graham, just basically knowing what is required to apply or qualify for funding. I think you have touched on it, but I didn't know if you wanted to unpack that a little bit further, or if Graham should get in touch with you directly afterwards. That's the only question we've had thus far.
Oh, okay. No problem. Here's our contact details on this last slide. Once one goes to the website, there's forms, and there's a on I think an opening page or something is do I qualify, and it's quite intuitive within conditional logic that allows you to fill in an inquiry. Alternatively, there's something that you can apply online and upload your information. There's an online application, or do it the old-fashioned way. Just pick up the phone or send an email, which is also off the website, and we can deal in technology arm's length or very much human interface. But the readiness to apply is important. So if you're an existing operator, the financials, the management accounts, the bank statements, and a brief synopsis, a page, half a page, saying what the growth plans and context is. So that's if you're an existing operator. But all of this is on the website, but I'm just highlighting it to answer the question. If one is acquiring a business or is starting a new concession type of location, then we need information about that existing operation, if it's a new business or whatever, and we need credentials about you as an entrepreneur to say, I'm not just out of university. Yeah, I'm like X years old. This is what trade I've been involved in. This is my network. This is my asset base if needed be. And so we have a comfort that there's a good operator, and I'm going to be full-time running it. Someone that's in Johannesburg buying something in Cape Town or Kruger and leaving it to people to passively run is a big problem. You've got to be committed in in what you're doing. Or if it's expanding, can't be everywhere, but there's a good management plan to handle the different locations. So at a high level, that's what it is. But the online application form details specifically what we require. There's a lot of information. There's an FAQ section as well. All right.
Fantastic. Yes, we've actually got 2 more that have come in. So Mandy has said, can you please give me information on bridging finance and what are the costs? Again, I don't know if that's something quite expensive that maybe we could take offline, Mandy, and you could get in touch with Spartan. But Kamaran, if there's anything you wanted to comment on there, you're welcome to.
Yes, it's dependent on the context. The bridging finance is a higher rate per month. It's only for 3 months, no more than 3 months, but it's revolving. And it's a higher rate than our longer term funding, and it's based on the collateral and some kind of context that we assess it based on risk. We offer that 1 to 3 months type of funding because we find that it helps improve our risk sometimes, and it also is a requirement for some businesses that don't have enough overdraft or can't yet get the overdraft at the amount you want. And funders don't typically offer it because it's like having someone staying at your hotel or lodge for 1 night. You want them to stay 3, 4, 5 months. We want the 3, 4, 5 year funding, not the 1 or 3 months. It's not attractive to us. So it is more higher price for that. But it's better based on your context for us to answer offline.
Fantastic.
Any more questions?
Yes, we've got one more. Before we do move on to that one, I do think because of the nuances, around funding and how to apply, etc., I do think getting in touch directly would be very useful and having that one-on-one contact with Spartan SME Finance. Graham wants to know, I see that you fund movies. Would you fund a production company that facilitates bringing film crews to shoot, and with that brings tourism? And quite key because we're doing a lot of work in that space at the moment with stakeholders. Could you answer that one, Kamaran?
We would love to look at it. We've been involved in funding movies and series only for now, but we like taking an ecosystem view, so I'd need to hear a little bit more. I would love to hear a little bit more. And who was that? Graham, was it? Graham Abbott.
Yes, it was Graham.
So Graham, maybe you can fill in your email in the chat here, and then we'll reach out to you, or your phone number. We'll reach out to you and talk about that offline. We'll give you a call just after this.
That's great stuff. Thank you. And we will, just as a reminder, we are recording this session. We will be sharing that tomorrow, and then we'll share all the relevant contact details as well for you guys to reach out to Spartan SME Finance to answer any questions you may have. Thanks, Graham. I see your contacts, so I'll pass it on. Any other questions? We don't have anything else that's pending. Kamaran, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to present.
No, there's someone here with a question. Armchair travel.
Would you fund an armchair travel company? That's from Margaret. Margaret, do you want to unmute yourself?
Please.
Yeah.
Just go. Good afternoon. Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thanks.
Yes, I have a venture. I'm venturing into armchair travel, whereby the focus is on people who cannot physically travel through your VR and your AR technology. Would you find something like that?
What do you mean VR and AR?
VR in virtual reality.
Okay.
So we bring the destination to the people that are not able to physically travel.
Wow. So it sounds hell of a innovative and exciting. My dad is a diabetic and disabled, double amputee. So I can relate to a need and sympathize with the need for that. He often laments about that. So we'd love to look at it. The key thing with anything innovative or whatever is going to be, is there sufficient demand? And I don't know if there is or not. But having a dad that wheelchair bound, and, I know that there would be children or whatever that would want this for 4 family members. But if you could, let's take this offline, but that is this first central thing for us to understand. But we'd really love to look at it and maybe empower us to understand, maybe some stats, some research, some kind of thing, and we could work it out to figure a way.
Wow, fantastic. So we'll
That's
take this offline.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret. Yes, I think it'd be great, as Kumaran said, just to understand a bit more, but phenomenal. Yeah, incredible.
Post your details here.
Yeah, I'll pass them on. And it's one thing, Kumaran, this bunch of tourism community, we are very creative and innovative. We've got one more question from Mapula. What are the main eligibility criteria I need to meet to qualify for funding as a travel agency? Mapula, I think we've touched on that, and I think, again, it's very nuanced. It would be best to get in touch directly because there's so many factors that would play a role on your specific criteria. And correct me if I'm wrong there, Kumaran.
Trading,
I don't know if we're having some tech issues again.
Yeah, I can't hear you very well. Maybe unmute yours and let me speak through this.
That's not a problem. Mapula, I'm going to suggest that you get in touch with Spartan SME directly with regards to your question, because it's quite nuanced in terms of your specific situation. Leash is commenting, saying thank you so much for that question.
Hello?
Great. There we go,
I see
Kumaran.
Yeah, sorry, I'm using someone else's laptop now. I think mine has got a issue. I saw there was something from Angelique. She said was there something that someone filled out a form and was declined? Did I see that?
I don't recall seeing that.
Was a comment? Someone called Angelique? Did I see that?
No, that was me, Kumran.
I'm not afraid of the difficult questions, so I just didn't want to ignore you on that. So you inquired online. What's the name of your business?
Sierra's Applying Adventures.
Yeah. Hell, supply should be great. Is it okay? So I will get someone to look at that.
Okay, please, I'd appreciate that.
And we'll reach out with you.
Awesome.
If there's a valid reason why, because in that auto rejection, I think it allows you to motivate in case we stuffed up and missed something. That autoresponder will say that. But I'll undertake to get someone to look at it, and if there's a reason that makes sense, then we'll tell you, listen, this is why we can't help you, and this is how we can. If we made a mistake, then we'll reconsider that. Okay.
Awesome, much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I just want to check that there's nothing else.
Koi Heritage.
Graham's got a question around Koi Heritage Journeys. Graham, I'm happy for you to unmute yourself and to ask the question.
Hi, thank you so much. I've been living in this little town of mine in Barradale for 14 years, and I see how the community is struggling. And there are very rich Koi history here. They date back 4,000 years. There are paintings in the mountains. We go and walk up to this. Loads of lovely hikes. And I'd like to empower the youth in the community into learning about their culture, and then having tourism come and learn about the First Nation people and their history and their culture and the medicinal herbs and the healing and everything else that goes on with the Khoi tradition and culture. And is that something? It's very small. It's not a big business, but it's something which I think will empower a lot of people.
Off the top of my head, because I am a traveler in this beautiful land of ours, I have conflicting thoughts, which is dangerous because it's an intuitive response I'm giving you.
Sure.
As an experienced funder. The one is, if I was traveling there, I would love to be a client or guest and pay and experience that. As a funder, I'm worried, and you seem to be sensitive to it already, that it may be too small. How much of funding does this require, and what are the, monthly turnover volumes? It may be that we are not a good fit, or it doesn't meet our minimum criteria. This particular one, I worry about.
I'm just very much stuck in the middle of everybody gives me the same answer. So it doesn't really get anywhere. It's like everybody thinks you're too small to invest in, but it's it's
Yeah.
a tough
You know
position.
what? You've already put your details down for one of us to talk to you. Isn't it about the production thing, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another side completely.
Yeah, I get it. So, but in there, we maybe chat for a few minutes on this part to unpack it, Otherwise, you got 70.
No,
80
exactly. I mean,
people
look, I worked in the
listening.
film industry for 15 years as had a production company in Cape Town. So I know the industry backwards. And I've been living here for 10, 12 years. And I want to put all that knowledge into practice. We've got beautiful passes in the Trudeau Pass, lovely roads on the R62. There's amazing back roads for car shoots, for movies, for all kinds of production
Okay.
background.
Let's take it offline. Let's take
Yes.
it offline. I got
Okay.
your details.
Thank you so much, Graham. I've got your email ready to shoot across to the team so they can get in touch with you.
Thank you so much.
Kumaran, I don't know if there's anything else from your side, but we don't have any more questions.
No, this is a lovely sector. We have funded tourism businesses in the past. Now we're putting a bit of steroids on it. And, most of us at Spartan are travelers. And it's a very exciting industry that's a bit mad and dangerous and wonderful at the same time. And so we're excited to be involved in it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, just as a reminder, before you guys knock off, we will share the recording tomorrow with the relevant contact details in our weekly newsletter from SATSA. And probably just to let you know, today we are releasing a massive research piece we've done from 4,200 consumers on adventure tourism insights. So please keep your eyes out on your mailers from SATSA. That'll be going out shortly. And I think it's very apt that we've had the webinar with Spartan SME today. So thank you so much for joining us. If there's nothing else, you are welcome to clock off. Thank you so much to Kumaran for joining us this afternoon and for sharing your expertise. And please do get in touch with Spartan SME Finance to ask any questions you may have around your specific circumstances and ideas. Thanks so much, everyone.